Hello, hello, and good morning to everyone. Welcome to the meditation course session one, part one, with myself and my wonderful co host, who I'm happy to introduce, Stephen Oliver. Welcome, Stephen.
Yeah, well, hi, Rose. Good morning, and good morning, everyone. And this is exciting. I was watching a live stream. I forget whose show it was, and they were talking about what it takes to put on a live stream. and, and believe you me, there's a lot of nuts and bolts to making a live stream happen. And I appreciate what you're doing, Rose. Tons. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I thank you too. This is so mutually beneficial because really I'm hosting a course that I need to take. So you are the teacher, and I think that the timing is right for this. And so this is the perfect opportunity for me to make this commitment to take this time to actually focus, stop everything else that's going on in my life, because I truly believe that now is the time to jump into this with this spiritual war that's going on, where there's a full spectrum attack on all of us coming from all directions: emotional, physical, spiritual, and all of us are desperately grasping for solutions, like the legal remedies that we talk about on Crow 777 Radio, like the health episodes that we talk about on Crow 777 Radio, like supplements and frequency machines. People talk about being close to nature and the alchemical process that we go through within as we're on schoolhouse earth. So right now, for me especially, my heart is going out to all of the suffering in the world today. And, there's Buddhist ideas associated with it. There's always going to be suffering, and we're going to get into the ancient ideas of meditation. And so, as a person who cares very much about human suffering, as a person who has struggled to take control over my mind, I think that maybe I got used to some bad habits that some people might, call ADD, but really maybe I just haven't been disciplined to stop bad habits that I felt were part of my personality for my whole life. But really, since I've never done anything like this, I am so excited to discover what I
Yeah.
can gain from really making an effort here. And so this is day one for me. And if there's anyone else out there and it's day one for you, thank you so much for also making this commitment and joining me on this journey. What would you have to add to that,
Well,
Stephen?
I think you're right on the money here. This particular course that we're doing together has been in the works for me personally for a long, long time. And us coming together to do this happened so easily and so magically. You actually found me before I found you.
That is
And
correct.
and and the there's a law in nature, which we'll talk about later on at some point, of attraction, where you were looking for something, I was looking for something, and the moment we got within reasonable distance of each other, it connected, and boom, we've got this. And I believe that what we are experiencing now in this reality started in aggressively in the 20s with mind control.
Mm,
I believe that what we're experiencing now with I keep using the example of everyone rushing out buying toilet paper all of a sudden, is the fact that we are constantly being manipulated unconsciously. So the idea of this course and the three pieces we have is to arm everybody with the necessary tools to deprogram themselves, to be aware of when they are being programmed and to stop it. And at a higher level, you can use this material for self-development and self-improvement, not just of yourself, but of your family and your community. So the bigger picture of this is that we are arming ourselves with information that has been hidden from us and made difficult. And what we might find, and I know I have found this over the years, that this material, although you think it wouldn't generate issues, will trigger people. People will get triggered by this material because it's hitting to the core. So when I see someone getting triggered, I mean, I know we had one person in our last week test run, and for me, when someone gets triggered, that is an opportunity for learning. Something's happening with that individual to make it so important that they get emotional about it. And that's an indication that there's some big learning to happen. And I'll always try to encourage anyone who gets triggered during the information not to drop and run, but to stay and say, wait a minute, why did I just get triggered? And to ask questions and to say, can you clarify that? If it's something I said or you said, ask us to clarify it, because here's what I found out. That the majority of the times that people have gotten triggered in these seminars, we were both saying the same thing. We were on the same page. It's just that the language and the emotions blocked it. And that's something, it has to do with dissonance. When you see something that is conflicting or challenging your belief system, you'll automatically will defend against it, even though it's
Yeah.
trying to help you. So
Yeah.
as we go forward, I would say that if you as an individual feel in any way triggered, that's a good sign. That means that something inside of you is hitting bells. And either I personally have something to learn, or you have something to learn, or the whole group has something to learn. So don't be afraid if you're triggered. Ask questions and consider it an opportunity to learn. So that's all I had to say on that.
Excellent.
In general, I think, like, I seem to be yappy right now. In general, I think that we've been conditioned to believe that healing is getting sick, and that being triggered and having a realization is wrong. Being triggered is actually the process of what is called chaos and reorganization, which is a unit we have later on. But you go through chaos, something upsets you, and because of that, you learn something and you improve.
Right.
So get triggered. Hey, thank the Lord you're having a learning experience. Just do it kindly, and that kind of takes us into that little meditation we did last week, the 1-minute meditation.
Mm-hmm. So are we going to do a
And
1-minute meditation now and then do the 5-minute meditation after the video that we're going to share? Or are we going to jump into that video first and then do the color meditation later?
I think that a lot of people enjoyed that short little 1-minute meditation that we did last week. And I'm kind of thinking maybe we should do another one and give a little bit more instruction with it, because I think that's kind of a powerful way of illustrating something called detachment.
Okay.
So I'd like to do that 1 minute. So shall I set it up?
Yeah. And how about this? I'm just going to put on this overlay so that we're not distracted and we're just uh, going to stay silent and focusing on your voice. And then you can lead us through this 1 minute.
Okay, so this is a practice meditation of 1 minute, and some of you who were here last week may have done it, but all we're going to do is to sit quietly for 1 minute and focus on something in front of you. If there's something that doesn't have any emotional value, like a spot on the wall or a speck or something, or maybe your mouse or something that's rather inanimate, you're going to just look at something for 1 minute. And during that 1 minute, what will happen is that you're focusing on that object or that spot or whatever it is will be interrupted by a thought. And a thought can be something visual that you're thinking about, something auditory that you're listening to or hearing or words that you thought you heard. It could be something that you smell. Sometimes people, when they're meditating, they smell things or taste things. So it could be any of your five senses plus speech. You might hear someone talking to you. That's a thought. So when you have a thought, we're going to practice disconnecting from it politely. So what you will do is, while you're focusing on your object, and you have a thought comes in, maybe you start thinking about what you're going to make for lunch or whatever, you will recognize that you're having a thought and politely just disconnect from it and go back to what you were doing, looking and focusing on that object. Now, for those of you who want to close your eyes, what you can do, when you close your eyes, you will probably see a little fuzzy dot. And you can just look at that. It doesn't mean anything. It's just something to focus on. And the same thing applies whether you're looking at a real object with your eyes open or you're looking at a fuzzy dot with your eyes closed. When you have a thought, just politely disconnect from it and go back to watching your fuzzy dot or your object. And the reason I say politely disconnect from it is because you are generating that thought somehow. That thought is coming from you. So you're actually disconnecting from a part of you. So you want to do it kind of politely and nicely. So this is called Detachment Meditation. So I think we're ready to go. Are we ready to go, Rose? Okay. Okay, so when I say start, I have my watch with me. So when I say start, you will begin your focusing on a object outside of you or the fuzzy dot with your eyes closed for 1 minute. Okay, here we go. Start. Okay, that's the 1 minute. You can come back from wherever you were. So how was
All
that, Rose? How
right.
did you find that? Is it long or short for you?
Oh, it was short for me. It was a lot easier. I was focusing on the tip of the mountain that's on my main desktop background picture. And
Okay.
I kept just telling myself, I'm looking at the top of the mountain. I'm looking at the top of the mountain. I'm looking at the top of the
Okay.
mountain. And that way, nothing, I didn't think of anything else. But then I stopped doing that because I thought, well, that's actually thinking something and maybe cheating. And then so I just stopped. But then I started looking down at my computer and like wondering things. And then I went back up and I was as polite as humanly possible.
So you see how much you went through in that 1 minute.
Right. That's why it
And
seems short.
yeah, no, you had a lot going on. And I suspect those who participated with us in the chat may have found the experience long or short. Um, just curious if, for those in the chat who did it, if you could put it just a 1 indicating that you found it easy to do, or a 2 if you found it difficult. I'd be interested in seeing that. A 1 if you found it easy to do, or a 2 if you found it. Yeah, the fuzzy dot's a wonderful little tool. Searching for the fuzzy dot. Some people don't have a fuzzy dot, and you're absolutely right. If you don't have a dot when you eyes, you can go on a hunt for the fuzzy dot. So you just look for it. Oh, okay. So we've got one easy, two difficult. Now, this is a very important practice. And if you're interested in following this along, you might want to practice this on your own once or twice a day for a minute or two, no longer. You don't have to do it for a long period, because what you're practicing the art of detachment. So you sit quietly, looking at something inanimate. It has no particular meaning to you, and you're just looking at it. And at some point, your subconscious will say, Steve, you've got to get ready for lunch, or you've got to do your taxes, or, what time is it? You'll get some kind of prompt from your subconscious. And this is what we'll be investigating in great detail as we go through, is what your subconscious is trying to do is to basically keep you happy. And it thinks you want to have these thoughts. The one thing before we go on, Rose, is the purpose of doing the detachment meditation in this way is so that you can realize that you are not your thoughts.
Right.
We are
Well,
having a
that's
thought.
good. That's
That's
very
right.
good.
That's very important, because a lot of people get all hung up and they believe that the thoughts that they are experiencing are actually them.
Yeah, well, I think very, very strange things all the time that don't make any sense, and if I make myself laugh, I enjoy it. Like, I mean, I could give examples, but it would take us off on a tangent. But really, I have such a creative mind, but it goes
Absolutely.
in both spectrums, and sometimes it's like only an evil genius could imagine that, you know. So I'm not that evil genius.
Here's a little rub for you. There was a study done recently in universities, and they asked students this question: do they hear themselves think? The majority of them did not hear themselves think, did not even know what that meant. And I've tried that with different people, and I ask people, are you aware that you're thinking? And the answer is no. So a lot of people, don't realize that their subconscious is talking to them, giving them messages, and B, don't understand that if they do get messages, that it's not them. They are perceiving these thoughts. Very, very important first step in when you're meditating. The other two is that don't worry about how many thoughts you have. It's not about stopping thoughts. It is absolutely, in fact, if you stop thinking, you're dead. Only dead
Yeah.
people don't have any thoughts. So having a thought is very, very important. And so the practice is disconnecting politely from your thought. I've got one more question for you, Rose, before we go on.
Okay. Yes.
Do you remember we were talking about the modes of thinking, that you could see something, hear something, smell, touch something, hear words? Were your thoughts mainly what? Were they visual things that you were having experiences, or were the things that you were hearing? What kind of modes were you experiencing when you were
Oh, well,
doing that 1 minute?
that's a very interesting question because I a lot of times I'm seeing, well, this is how you'll understand like what I guess I called ADD, but I don't know what else to call it. Generally, throughout every moment of every day, I am seeing flashes of the past or visions of like the future and like what I or in my intentions or just creative imaginative things that have nothing to do with anything. And then while that's happening, I am thinking conscious, logical thoughts about my day and like past, present, future, what I
Okay.
have to do, my opinions on things, all of the stresses and anxieties. And then also,
So,
I constantly have music playing in my mind that I've just gotten used to over the years. I'm obsessed with a very specific, the same things for the past 30 years, perhaps, whether it's classical or metal. I'm always hearing music,
okay.
seeing visions, and thinking
So,
things.
so let's call that vision you have a thought, a frame. And in that frame, is the music playing while you're watching it, or does it play after? So
Well, like
you're
I
looking at a picture. Are you hearing the music while you're looking at the picture, or does the music happen when you take your eyes off of the image?
okay,
This is
totally.
important.
I didn't even think to mention this when I was telling you about this minute, but see, when I see something that I think is beautiful, there's a corresponding music that like is in a
Okay.
filing cabinet. So when I was looking at the mountaintop on this computer, I started hearing, you know,
Absolutely.
a
Absolutely.
symphony, and I don't
Okay.
even think about it that much because it's just there. It's just something
Okay.
that
Yeah.
pops in, like the soundtrack to my life.
Okay. So the soundtrack to your life is a way of thinking. That's the way you think. And understanding Rose would be understanding the music that she plays at different times.
Mhm.
Right? And the same thing for those of you in the chat. When you after you do your meditation for 1 minute, just sit down and think, well, what experiences did I have? Did I see things? Did I hear words? Did I hear music? Some people have a physical sensation. Some people
Yeah.
feel have a. For me, there's a particular situation, and I know that it's a healthy one. I know that it's a state when I start to heal, and it's a very specific feeling that I get when I'm meditating. It's maybe it's impossible for me to describe that sensation, but it's a
That's what I
tactile,
want.
physical sensation. Yes.
That's,
So those
of
are
all the crazy things that I described, I would trade it all for that. I would love to have this
okay.
feeling. I always feel like I want my body to feel things. You know what I mean? And maybe through this meditation,
Okay.
I can get a physical sensation as well.
Absolutely. So the first step is learning how to detach from the random thoughts that occur.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the
So
first
that's the
step. You learn,
reward.
yes, because what happens is, as you learn to disconnect from these random, the apparently random thoughts that occur, your subconscious will direct you to more important ones.
Yes, so I want to go to what Mystic Knight says. She's mentioning that Crow talks about earworms, and I despise earworms, and I also have mastered putting out the earworm because I have music that I like and appreciate and that serves me on file, but sometimes something like TLC from 1995. Like, this is total nostalgia program where I'm like, don't go chasing waterfalls. And I'm like, I don't like that song. I don't want to hear that song right now. And so I'll trade it for another song, like, a Viking instrumental. I'll exchange
So
for that.
here's where it gets interesting. So we're getting into some really, again, this is all from that 1 minute little meditation, right? It's very powerful. When you start politely disconnecting from these apparently random thoughts you get when you sit down to meditate, you will begin to disassociate from these thoughts and move closer to your source, to where the thoughts are being generated from. So you want to move to your source. Where are these thoughts coming from? And as you move closer to your source, and here's where the magic is, you will automatically begin to heal.
Oh.
That's what the source does. That's all its role is to make you more whole. So as you disconnect from all these random thoughts that pop up in your head, and when you sit down to meditate, you may be hit with a flood of thoughts. It's called bubbling up. Perfectly okay. Don't fight it. Just take it and politely keep refocusing on something inanimate. And what will happen eventually is that you will move closer and closer to your source. And that's when you will begin to connect with whatever it is you need. I don't know what you need. And in fact, you don't even know what you need,
Yeah,
but your
that's the
source does.
journey.
Your source knows.
I have a question for you. Okay, I really am excited about playing the video that we have queued up. We're already at 30 minutes, so now we
Yep,
know, Steve, that we can
we're
definitely
ready.
talk. We'll never have a problem filling time for a show.
No,
Because I have a question for
no.
you that is coming out of left field a little bit, but I hope that it's relevant enough. Um, so where are the thoughts coming from? What just popped into my mind, the answer to that, I wonder if you, what your opinion is on that Islamic Sufism idea that we've covered with Muhammad on Crow 777 of the Kareen. It's like the other, the shadow, and it's kind of like messing with you, and part of healing is making you have to find a relationship with your Karin. So maybe your Karin is like the little devil on your shoulder from the Christian perspective, but really it's a mind science, and it's about facing this idea of the shadow, which we could also say
Right.
the Western version is Carl Jung. When we face that shadow, and is that what you mean, like politely saying that in this context, the Karin?
In general, in life, never yell at anybody.
Did I
Anybody,
just say
either.
something? Did I yell
No,
at
no,
someone
you
just now?
didn't. No, no,
Okay.
you didn't. But I'm saying to the world is that when you sit down to meditate, you're being polite to yourself, to your subconscious, and to your greater subconscious. And I think the thoughts that we're talking about can come from a number of sources. One, they can come from your personal subconscious. Your subconscious wants to talk to you. So that's one source. The other source is it can come from the greater superconscious, the realm around you. And that's where it could be coming from people who love you and perhaps some people who don't love you. And that's where we could be receiving uh, thoughts from others. And some of those
Mm,
thoughts from others may not be to our advantage. So when you disconnect from all thoughts, you indiscriminately disconnect from all thoughts. You're disconnecting from the ones from yourself and the ones from others, okay, equally. And then that gives you a chance then to determine, well, which ones do I want to accept into my reality?
yeah, I mean, actually,
Okay,
and you could also include in that the idea of the projecting thoughts that you think might be coming from other
absolutely.
people.
And in my opinion, the worst thing that we can do for ourselves is to predetermine what we should do. Too much of a greater extent. We need to have goals and objectives, yes. But when you sit down to meditate, you're not down to do anything in particular. You're sitting down to open up, not to do something. So yeah, we could go on a long time with this topic, but hopefully that began to address your question. I think there's
Yes.
three sources: your subconscious, your greater subconscious, and then there's a realm where we are being, it's like a radio stations out there that we are tuning into.
Yeah.
That so they're not all coming from you particularly, and we need to, and this meditation will help you sort them out.
Yeah, so that I think that is actually what Muhammad was getting at, is that there's like different aspects. There's the Karin, there's the Jinn, there's the Dajjal, and there's
Yep,
like the
yep,
different realms
yep.
of consciousness. So
Different names
it's
for them. Different names
yeah,
for them. And you'll notice that what I've developed over the years is I don't tend to go with too many formal names for things because,
yeah.
what you may call it and what someone else will call it, we're talking about the same thing,
Yeah,
and then
it's
they'll
the
argue about
semantics
it.
problem. It's the semantics
The
problem we were talking
semantics
about
problems.
earlier, where someone might be
Yep.
talking about Christ consciousness and someone might be talking about Odin, and they're really just
Hmm.
talking about someone who, reached a
Right.
higher mind and went through that alchemical process. But anyway, let's get to the
No.
video. Why don't we get to our video?
Right on. Discussion to be continued.
Okay, everyone, we're going to play the video and then everyone take notes and then we'll chat and we'll discuss afterward. Here we go.
Just before you show the video,
Okay.
just before we show the video, what we've done, we've taken my sessions and divided it into smaller segments so that we can show them and then discuss them.
All right, here we go.
Okay, welcome to session 1 of the Introduction to Meditation, and we'll be holding these every Wednesday. And what I've decided to do is small segments recorded so that Rose and I can pay attention to the chat room, and then we can discuss it. So this will be the first portion of session 1. Now I'll put on my PowerPoint. Okay, so Introduction to Meditation, and like I said, this is something I'm doing jointly with Rose and myself, and we'll be doing live streams every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So the whole idea of meditation is, I find, extremely interesting, but there's a lot of misinformation, and sometimes people make more of it than they should, and sometimes they make less of it than they should. So the goal of this series of presentations is to demystify meditation and to make it really easy to do and fun for you to do. So here's a definition of meditation. It's a discourse intended to express its author's reflections or to guide others in contemplation. Now, that's a general term for meditation, but doesn't really convey what we're thinking of, which is the silent practice. So this is what we're going to go deeper into. So during all of these sessions, there's going to be some resources. You'll have the live sessions every Wednesday that you can watch, but also there will be the recording, so there'll be an archive, and there may be supplementary videos that Rose and I might make during the week. As well, if you want, you could join the Patreon member as a Patreon member, and there's 3, but 2 really active now. One is just a general introductory offer. You can join and participate in the after show discussions and receive sort of additional information. And then at a $10 a month, you can join the group that wants to learn about the internal map of reality. And that will be kicking off pretty soon, so there'll be more information on that. So there's lots of options for getting resources. Broken it up into 10 topics, and each topic or each session will be broken into smaller pieces so that we can digest one section at a time. And, we go first initially looking at the ancient approaches, which is what we're going to talk about in this session. And then after that, we look at what Western science has said about meditation. And then we'll zoom into an official definition of the relaxation response and why that is key for understanding meditation and why it's really a desired outcome from meditation. And then we'll look at the left brain and right brain, and there's a whole bunch of aspects in there that we want to talk about. And something called frequencies of the brain. Your brain wave frequencies change when you meditate, or they go through a process. And you need to understand that. And then there's something I call the 3 realms. We're working on more than one realm at a time. And of course, there could be more than 3, but I just picked out 3 main ones to talk about. And something that is one of my main areas of interest is something called conscious change. Whatever you focus on consciously begins to change. We'll talk about that. And then something called chaos and reorganization. And this is a fun one because you may, in your own life, recall that it seems whenever you make a change, there's a period of chaos and then a period of reorganization, and then you go on. And that's a cycle. And then we'll kind of wrap it up with a session on breathing. And then finally, a session on your personal practice. Now, these session numbers and topics might change depending on what you want. So we're going to stay with what is important to you. So in this first session, we're going to drill into something called a directed meditation. And a directed meditation is sometimes called a guided meditation. You are being guided through a process. And then we'll talk about a traditional meditation. And I believe in our first trial session, we did a 1-minute meditation. I think we'll probably do another one of those. That's a traditional detachment, learning to detach from your thoughts, and very powerful. Then as we proceed in the session, we have to look at what thinking is. And we're going to drive into the concept of thinking and talk about something called frames and modes and sub-modalities. And later on in this section, we're going to have to understand the difference between beliefs and truths. They're not necessarily the same. What you believe isn't necessarily a truth. And then we'll go into something called content versus form. You probably heard this mentioned several times. Does form determine the content, or does the content determine the form, or are they separate? And we'll talk about that. A famous phrase was, and from a scientist in Canada, his phrase was, the medium is the message. The medium is the message. So the form that you're communicating in becomes the message. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with something called the observation effect. But before we delve into all of that, here's how we're going to break it in. I'd like to go first into a little introduction about me. Who am I? Well, I was born here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, some years ago. And I think what really shaped my personal being was the family I was born into. My mother and father were both spiritual healers and were extremely active and recognized across Canada and parts of the world as being extremely effective for what they did. They actually changed people by changing how they thought. Now, for me as a child growing up, I automatically thought that, well, everybody's family was basically like mine, and everyone had parents who went out healing people. That wasn't the case. And then in high school, I was really beginning to realize that things weren't quite as they were at the home front. So I took a summer job here in Halifax, and it turned out to be with the Halifax Recreation Department with an experimental children's theater group. And this wasn't a normal theater group, although we did learn classical acting process. But we also had to learn something called environmental interactive acting. So the children were free to participate and interact with us as they chose fit. So as a character in a play, the children would be interacting with me as that character, and we would create the play. Now, the play had a beginning, middle, and end, but throughout it, the actors who worked together with the children created a new version every time. So this was something that actually opened my mind up to the power of thought, the power that what you think can actually be extremely powerful, and to see groups of 30 or 40 or sometimes larger groups of children becoming totally mystified and enthralled by an imaginary environment. Well, as a result of that work, I met a young lady and fell in love and traveled with her to Toronto, Canada. And it turned out that she was one of the lead dancers with the Toronto Dance Theatre. So I studied with the Toronto Dance Theatre, traveled around the world. And it was through my studies with the Toronto Dance Theatre that I began to see at a professional level what the mind can do. You have to understand that if you know anyone, or if you have performed at a professional level in theater or in dance, it's extremely demanding, and it requires you to be focused, very focused on what you're creating. And the powerful, when you get a group of people doing this, it's amazing. So I discovered that And during this phase, I began to feel the need to go back to college. So I went back to college, a place called Sheridan College. And during that phase, I was studying yoga, Tai Chi, meditation, massage therapy, and began my lifelong practice of meditation. Seriously began it with the study of Tai Chi with a Taoist monk. And then at some point, I felt a need to return to Halifax. And when I did, I continued my studies of traditional Chinese medicine, studies of meditation, and opened up a wellness center here in one of the first, actually. It's a multidiscipline wellness center that had massage therapists, chiropractors, naturopathic doctors, acupuncturists, counselors, and I provided training in Tai Chi and meditation. As a result of that, I began to interact with the local universities and began a long period, almost 10 years, work with St. Mary's University, researching the effects of meditation and the effects of the internal map of reality. Not shown here was also my involvement with another university called Dalhousie University. And it was through my involvement with Dalhousie University that I developed this course, which I offered for almost 10 years. So I've been doing this for a while, and it's always been exciting. And I find that no matter what I do, I have a strong love for it. So what you can do, if you want to reach for contact, if you want to reach me, you can go to STO2015 at protonmail.com. Or if you want to reach Rose, you can go to contact Rose777 at protonmail. And, if you have questions or if you want to know about what you're doing, if you just want to share with me who you are and what your interests are, let me know what kinds of things you've studied in meditation, if you have a specific interest as we move forward. And at any time, if you have questions, but anything you share with Rose and I will be kept completely confidential.
I just need to pause it for a second to point out that there was a little typo here where it says contract Rose 777, but it is actually contact. And I just wanted to also make sure that anyone who was just listening and not looking at the screen, that the word contact is part of the email. So I'm not telling you to contact Rose777 at protonmail.com. The email is contact Rose777 at protonmail.com. Sorry about that.
And at different times, we'll be asking for your feedback. Well, that's the very beginning intro section of this today's course. There'll be other sections which we'll dig into later, but we'll probably do a little 1-minute meditation now. Okay, thanks for pointing that typo out, Rose. But I actually thought that you get so many emails. You would probably have a bucket of emails that you have yet to even look at. So I probably shouldn't have put that there. But
it's okay. I want people to know that that's how to reach me. But for things related to this, we made this after you made the video, but we do have another email address, the internal map of reality at gmail.com, that we both have access to. And then there's your email as well.
Can we put that? Maybe we should put some of this contact information in the comment section.
Yes.
Of your, so, okay. So any questions in the chat from what you just saw there?
There's a lot of background noise. Is there someone using a vacuum or a leaf blower behind you?
It's autumn here in Halifax, and the boys are out there with their leaf blowers. I'll just mute my sound unless I'm speaking.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I'm just going to get our new email address, internalmapofreality at gmail.com. And just to clarify, what you're doing with us here on our free live streams it's a meditation course. We're going to be meditating, talking about meditation, and that is really just the precursor for what we were talking about with the whole Patreon uh, thing, the internal map of reality is a completely separate course, and it goes in really deep, just having to do with the programming of the mind. So but for all things related to anything that Steve and I are doing, this is a good email address right here, internalmapofreality@gmail.com. And then you have the other email addresses as well. And then let's look at the chat here and see if we have any comments here. We have one comment here that says, Rose, listening to this reminds me of what I was listening to last night about composing music and how it's utilized intentionally to move emotional responses. Intentional living sounds wonderful. Well, you know what that really reminds me of? It reminds me of an interview with Quentin Tarantino, when he's just really sick of people constantly asking him in interviews, so why are your movies so violent, and it's like, why do I have to keep answering? Like, you're making me show up here just to answer the same question over and over again. I've told you all about this over and over again, and the answer is, in case anyone meets him and you don't want to piss him off by bugging him with that question, is that he feels a rush from being the composer of the audience's emotions. So that's why, he's always trying to like top himself, because for him personally, he wants to have control and be the manipulator of people's emotions. And that's what music does. And that's also what we can be doing to our own mind. You know what I mean? So if I am feeling a certain emotion, I'm feeling triggered, like what Steve was talking about, acknowledging and accepting, why am I being triggered? You can take control of that situation and discover it, instead of, repeating that cycle like a constant Quentin Tarantino movie in your mind.
Oh, that sounds pretty powerful. Yeah. The key is you're getting messages all the time. And through meditation and practicing that, you will begin to be aware of where the messages are coming from. They're coming from you, coming from your subconscious, or coming from your other consciousness, outer world kind of thing. Yeah, so that's great.
So we went through our video, our introduction, and so we're almost at the top of the hour. Are we going to close out now with our color meditation?
I think that would be nice. And also, can we make the link for this guided meditation available in the comment section for people? Or maybe put it.
Absolutely. Yes. You know what? I had it uploaded in StreamYard, so I don't have it handy right at the moment. So what I'll do is I've done this meditation a couple of times. I actually did it this morning when I woke up. So I will get that link to post in the comments right at the beginning of the meditation, and then I'll jump in with you guys. How's that?
Okay, and a quick setup for it before you start it. A
Mhm.
guided meditation is different from what we were doing in the beginning. This is where you're going to attach to a thought. And we're not detaching from thought now. With a guided meditation, you're going to follow along. You're going to attach to the voice, which is going to be me. And I will guide you through a very short meditation. And in this one, I noticed when I was reviewing it, I do say close your eyes, but if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, you can leave your eyes open. It's no big deal. It's no problem. So this is a guided meditation, and it's one of my favorite. And I think, Rose, this is the first meditation of mine you tried.
Exactly, that's how I discovered you. I noticed you in the chat, and I saw your profile picture, and just something hit me, and I wanted to see if you had a channel. And this was back then when you could actually click on someone's name in YouTube. See how
Right.
censorship is working? If it had happened later, maybe I never would have bothered to, type in Steven Diallo, but I clicked on your name and I saw, oh my gosh, look at all of these amazing videos, and I found the color one. And then I had my YouTube channel this whole time, wondering if we were ever going to meet and finally do this. So it really is awesome.
Absolutely. And I do really appreciate the people who have joined as patrons. And I really appreciate those who have taken the time to be part of the chat. And it's my personal feeling that this is a very valuable information for you. It's nothing that I created. I've accumulated all of this information for you. So I'm just sharing what others have pulled together. Suppose I think,
I
unless there's
got the
any
link.
questions,
I got the
I
link
see that.
here.
Fantastic.
So now I can start with everyone from the beginning. Here is the link to the color meditation. And I'll also update the description after this before we after we end the stream. Steve, let's make sure we have everything we want in the description. And so shall we begin?
I think we should. I'll mute
All
my
right.
sound.
Here we go.
Okay, with your eyes closed, sitting comfortably in a chair, we're going to start walking through the colors of the rainbow. And I'd like you to start with the color red. And just let whatever comes into your mind float in. There's no right or wrong way to do this. And just think about the color red. And if you want, you can imagine that when you breathe in, you're breathing in the color red and filling up with red. And when you exhale, you're letting the color red leave your body and go out back into the room. Red. Now we're going to move from red to orange. Just start thinking about the color orange, and whatever comes to your mind is right. And again, if you want, you can imagine that as you breathe in, you're breathing in the color orange, and as you exhale, you're letting the color orange come out and fill the room. And if you have a little bit of that red left, you can let that out too. Orange. Now, we're going to move to yellow. Yellow. And just as before, there's no right or wrong way. Whatever comes to your mind about yellow is right. And if you want, you can imagine that you're breathing in the color yellow, filling up with it, taking as much as you want because it's free. And as you exhale, you can let out the color yellow into the room. And if there's any orange left, you can let that out too. Yellow. We're going to keep moving now to green, brilliant green. And you can pretend that you're breathing in the color green and filling up with it, brilliant green, and letting it exhale out as you breathe out. And again, if there's any of that yellow left, you can let that out as you breathe out. We'll move now to blue. We'll move from green to blue. And if you want, you can breathe in, fill up with blue, and as you exhale, you can just let it come out and fill the room with blue. And as before, if there's any of the green left, you can let that out too. Blue. We'll keep moving now across the rainbow to purple, deep purple. And just let whatever comes to your mind about purple float in. And again, if you want, you can pretend you're breathing in the color purple and breathing it out as you exhale. Letting out any of the blue that might be left. Finally, we'll move to violet. violets almost like seashells, like mother of pearl. And you can imagine you're breathing in fresh violet, filling up with that color and letting it leave your body as you exhale. And of course, if there's any purple, you can let that out too. Violet. And to finish up this little guided meditation, we're going to combine all the colors together and create a brilliant white light. Brilliant white light. All the colors together balanced. And you can pretend you're breathing in this brilliant white light, filling up with it, and exhaling it out as you breathe out, filling up the room with this brilliant, clear, bright, white light. And at any point, you feel you want to open your eyes and come back, you can.
All right. So, all
I
right, we're
think that's
back.
it. Yeah.
That was great. How did you do, Stephen?
Brought back a lot of memories. It's interesting when you go through the colors. One of the things I would normally do with a group is ask them what things they saw or heard or felt with each color. And one of the things that came to my mind was the very first time I bumped into this meditation. I was walking in Toronto, Canada, down Yonge Street, the major street in Toronto, and the stranger walked up to me and handed me this book and said, "I'm finished with it. Here, it's yours," and gave me the book. And in the book was a short little pamphlet, paperback book, and in it was this color meditation. And that was years ago, and I've since passed the book on to other people, but that's what it reminded me of. How about you?
Oh my goodness. I mean, when I did this the first time, I felt like it was transformative, and I was so proud of myself for how calm and obedient I was. And then other times I've done it, you know, different stresses in my life, different experiences. This morning I did it and I just felt like a total pro. But now doing it during this live stream, I felt like a freaking psychopath because I was just thinking of I don't even know. So, yeah, really interesting. Now, so this is interesting. I wonder if as I progress through the course and master the art of meditation, if I'll be able to be more disciplined during a live stream. You know what I mean? Like maybe I won't have so much trouble with something like that. I mean, I wouldn't even be able to remember all of the thoughts I went through as we went through the colors. Whereas this
No,
morning, I would
no.
be able to describe it very easily.
Here's the thing that, and I think this is a common thing across all people, is that your tendency will be to want to recreate what you experienced the last time. But that will never happen. Each meditation should be unique and will be unique.
That is so interesting because something that oh, can you mute yourself while I explain this? Because you're the leaf blower. Okay, so this never happened before as I've done this meditation. As we move through the colors, I just move through the colors. I don't and but this time, every time that we move to a color, I abruptly move to the color. And whenever you would say, if there's any orange left or if there's any yellow left, I would think to myself, well, you don't have to say that. There's nothing left. I followed the instructions. I went to the next color. And so I had that internal monologue that seemed totally unnecessary, especially since I'd already experienced the meditation in a relaxed, accepting way. So maybe you can comment. Was that a trigger for some reason today? What do you think?
Well, the idea of mentioning the previous color when we've moved to the new color is kind of an opportunity to flush out attachments. Because what can happen is that when you want to switch frequencies, you're still attached to the previous one. You don't want to let go. Say you really liked orange. I'm an orange person. I love orange. When I move to yellow, I probably tend to want to hang on to that orange and stay there. It's like the changes that we go through in life. You want to hang on. Making changes is very difficult. People don't want to change, right? So it's kind of a flushing exercise. And this comes in later when you learn more about detaching from thoughts. You do know one of the biggest problems people have is they have a thought they can't get rid of.
Tell me.
They may think that they're a bad person and they can't get rid of that thought. They may have a thought about something they lost and they can't get rid of that thought. So this whole thing about learning to detach from thoughts has a really much bigger purpose. It's called sticky thoughts. We have sticky thoughts in our lives. So that little thing you talked about, sticky colors, where you didn't quite get rid of all of the yellow, there was still some sticking to you kind of thing. Well, this is what happens in our life. Whether you're aware of it or not, you may be saying you are a bad person.
Wow. Yeah. That's a lot is coming up for me now as you mentioned that. And since we are past an hour now, I guess we should save this let's move over to our private discussion.
Sounds
And
good.
I would love to go over some things that came up for me as you were just talking and during it, having to do with loss. We're all dealing with loss right now. Our dear friend Mac is no longer with
Mm-hmm.
us. And
Mm-hmm.
this experience for me was interesting because I felt like I was observing people who were clearly going through this sort of thing for the first time. And I vividly went back to my first time. Like I could start crying just mentioning it now. So I'd like to go into how this whole experience has brought back a lot of previous loss and how I'm trying to not uh get down on myself for that and call myself like a bad person who like
Yep,
just wants to
exactly.
make everything
Exactly.
bigger than it is and make myself relevant like I knew this person and so I have to spend a certain amount of time of you know what I mean. So let's save all this talk for the
Absolutely.
next discussion.
And I'll make one comment about we're going into the Patreon private chat now, stream. Um, the moment, if you decide to join up as a patron, you will immediately receive a message with the link to the stream. So if you decide that you want to join us, you can join on the Patreon account, uh, patreon.com/Stephen D. Oliver, and join us either today, oh, there it is, either today or in the future. And the moment you join, you will receive a thank you note and the link to the chat.
All right. So, what I think that we should do to close out this portion before we end the YouTube stream is just play a few moments of music. And then that way, anyone who wants to sign up right now can do so. And then I hope everyone just has a wonderful day. And if I see you in the
Yeah,
Patreon stream, that's great. And if not, I'll see you next time. And cheers, everybody. Love you guys so much. And blessings to everyone.
thanks, Rose.